Welcome to Collaborate, a celebration of the EU's multilateral engagement with creative industries across Europe.
I'm here today really because I'm quite a passionate believer in the value of Creative Europe as a project that supports European collaborative working. Once you start working collaboratively across borders, you encounter different systems, different structures, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. And it allows you crucially to do two things. It allows you to, move your work abroad and your practice, but also to rethink how you mobilize and develop your work and your practice at home. And so it's a double winner.
We have spent, across Europe, we have spent a full year working on the implications of the exit, on mitigating the worst possible implications, and on building a much better understanding of what we need to concern ourselves with right now. Creative Europe, Horizon 2020 for science research, and Erasmus Plus for our undergrads, postgrads, and faculty across Europe to engage and build their professional futures and to build our knowledge. These are the three programs we have prioritized. It's all of our responsibility to retain the engagement that you have and the value it brings to your professional groups and young people in this country.
We are hoping that our collective reflection will also help demonstrate the true value of the program, which goes well beyond the sum of the grants received. By hearing from some of those who have benefited from support from Creative Europe projects, we'd like to discuss the impact that the program is having in the UK. It is about the partnerships and networks and the way of working that the program promotes, which opens new opportunities that come from unexpected places and connections. As the Prime Minister said herself, though, we are leaving the EU, but we are not leaving Europe. However, if we are leaving the EU, the future of our collaboration with Europe is inevitably changing.
It is about that kind of serendipity, that kind of going into kind of different places, into different conversations, getting yourself into conversations with people that you don't necessarily think you've got an immediate connection with.
I think that there's a massive kind of privilege in being able to afford to be sociable and have the time to be able to talk to people and sit down and have a drink and some food. And that gives you a new set of experiences that you hear from other people. International citizenship. I think that's still a belief that I think is essential that we should uphold. And especially in relationship to climate change and migration.
And I think that that's, for me, one of the interesting dilemmas for all of us today, that it's never been so easy a time for artists and audiences to find the universal, to find the global. Access to culture has never been easier, especially for digital first generation, digital born, digital natives. But similarly, there's never been a greater need, I think, for the local voices, the local relationships, for the locally specific voices to be heard and understood. We have to learn to listen harder, to create partnerships outside our comfort zone, outside the bubble, to begin to bring in those in the community that we haven't much bothered about, not just those in the community that we most want to invite into our world. And the reason we need to do that is because we can't afford to have fatigue about democracy at this stage. We need to look at the excellent models that we have listened to this morning about those that actually are excelling at reaching out, at giving, at finding new ways to work, at thriving from the innovation, the stimulus that collaboration can give us.
Creative Europe actually, and you've already sort of heard it from the previous speakers, touches on the entire ecosystem of independent film globally. We need these partnerships and we need them to innovate along with us and try new things out. And I think that's a fundamental of what Creative Europe does.
When they got to talk to us about Creative Europe, they didn't talk to us about the money, they talked to us about actually what it had engendered and whether that was greater innovation, whether that was greater understanding, diversity of workforce, skills, training, etc.
The benefits have been the kind of consistent peer sharing and networking and knowledge sharing that has happened and been facilitated through the European Cinemas Network. And that happens in lots of different ways through things like the European Cinemas Conference, the kind of workshops and labs that they facilitate, and various exchange programs.
For us as a partnership, building audiences goes hand in hand with broadening perceptions of what inclusive arts practice is and what dance can be. And the quality of the work, therefore, needs to be really high.
People from other countries will ask you questions about what you do and what you take for granted that you will never be able to ask yourself because you just can't see outside of your everyday experience.
We have been working on a project called Moving Cinema. We work alongside 3 other European cinema venues and their own young programmer groups. A really key part of the project that I think makes it really special is the collaboration and communication between the 4 European groups.
We can learn a lot from young people, and if our audience is already a globalized audience, then of course we as a makers of performances should work on the same level as our audience.
By working across Europe, we really think that we can create these better conditions for innovation to develop and thrive and to build appropriate solutions much faster.
The future is to talk to people that aren't, that are in different countries, that are doing different things, that are coming from different complex histories. I think collaboration is best when, I suppose it's all about experimentation, isn't it? It's freedom of experimentation.
The festival works with a diverse portfolio of partners, both cultural organisations and frontline refugee charities. It pairs a local interest, helping to reorientate and give refugee artists opportunities within the UK cultural industries, and matches this with an international ambition, obviously thematically, and both in terms of what we want to do. And this was realised and made possible by Creative Europe funding.
Yes, of course, the future is full of difficulties, but also great opportunities. And collaboration and coming together is a key part of that.
I think cooperating with our European colleagues, taking their ideas, trying to get a forum in which we can discuss them in the UK, in the same way that they've taken ideas from us, offers some sort of hope.
It's essential actually to have organizations such as Creative Europe giving us all the opportunity to pioneer and to experiment and fail sometimes, but in order to learn and to become future-proof.
I think it's essential that we continue to collaborate across borders because we are fragile. And the thing about being part of an international project like Europa Cinemas, but also like so many of the other Creative Europe schemes, is there's a sense of solidarity around those things. It's all about building the market, if you want to talk in terms of market. It's also about building the confidence of people in being brave, in taking risks, in trying to improve the way they do things and being more inclusive. And that international exchange is really important to fostering that way of working.